When you're leading something, a team, a project, whatever it is, there's often that background hum, right? That feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Oh, absolutely. That sense of, okay, what could go wrong now?
Exactly. And the real question is, how do you handle that? How do the best leaders not just, survive that, but actually guide things to success?
It's a constant challenge, isn't it?
It really is. Well, today on the Deep Dive, we're going to dig in some really interesting leadership laws, I guess you could call them, and a framework that ties it all together. Our goal here is really to pull out the key nuggets, the practical stuff, to help you lead with more clarity, more resilience, and a better connection.
That's right. And we're drawing this from some really insightful training sessions and talks by Dr. Sumitro Chakraborty. He's someone who's actually put these ideas into practice.
The real-world application.
Exactly. We're trying to distill that wisdom for you, give you things you could actually use.
Yeah. Okay, great. So let's kick things off with one everyone knows, or thinks they know, Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Right. And the immediate reaction is often, wow, that's pessimistic.
Yeah, sounds like you're just expecting the worst. But the leadership angle here, it's different. It's more about realism, isn't it?
Precisely. It's not about being negative. It's about being prepared. Leaders look at this and think, okay, potential issues are inevitable. So what do?
We anticipate. We plan.
Yes. You anticipate potential failures. You build solid contingency plans. And this is key. You foster a culture where the team is actually proactive about spotting and solving problems.
So it's not just the leader worrying, it's the whole team being ready.
Exactly. It becomes a shared responsibility.
And the practical way to do that, well, it often comes down to having good standard operating procedures, SOPs.
Those clear guides.
Yeah, and making it absolutely clear who owns what. Who's accountable if X, Y, or Z happens.
Right. Accountability is crucial.
And Dr. Chakraborty shared a great story about this. From his early career, maybe, 2007 or 2008?
Yeah, I remember that one.
He was leading a project, and the team was just completely focused on Plan A tunnel vision.
Just assuming everything would go perfectly.
Right. No thought about backups, no clear SOPs for hiccups. And then, predictably,
something went wrong.
Something went sideways, yeah. And the whole project just ground to a halt. It got stuck. Big waste of time, resources, a real mess.
It's such a common trap, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it really highlights the bigger picture. It's not necessarily about preventing every single failure, because sometimes you just can't.
Right, things happen.
Things happen. It's about building the resilience to bounce back quickly, to learn from it and get stronger.
So failure becomes less of a disaster and more of a data point, a learning opportunity.
Exactly. Which, it raises a really interesting question for you listening. How do you strike that balance? How do you keep your team optimistic and driving forward, but also foster that readiness for setbacks without, creating constant anxiety or analysis paralysis?
It's a tough tightrope to walk. Okay, so if being prepared for things going wrong is step one, maybe step two is understanding why they often go wrong in the first place. And a lot of the time, it seems to boil down to clarity, or rather, the lack of it.
Absolutely. Which brings us to Kydland's Law. It sounds so simple. If you can write the problem down clearly, then the matter is half solved.
Simple but profound. How often do projects just spin because nobody's actually defined the real problem?
All the time. And it's fascinating why this is still such a big issue. People often underperform not because they aren't capable or aren't trying,
but just because they don't actually know what's expected.
Exactly. The expectations are fuzzy. Or they think they know, but it's different from what the leader or the rest of the team thinks. We assume everyone's on the same page, but
we often aren't. Which ties right into Gilbert's Law, doesn't it? The biggest problem at work is that no one tells you what to do.
It sounds almost like a complaint, but it's a serious leadership point. It just hammers home how vital clear problem statements and clear communication are.
If you can't define the target, how can anyone hit it?
Precisely. So the leadership takeaway from both Kydland and Gilbert is pretty clear. You have to actively push for clarity.
Encourage people to write things down, problem statements, plans.
Yes, and build good documentation habits. It's not just bureaucracy. It's about creating shared understanding.
So practically speaking, what does that look like day to day?
Well, things like daily task lists can help, making sure everyone knows their priorities. Problem logs, so issues are captured clearly.
Job briefs, project trackers.
SOPs, like we mentioned earlier. And something really effective is a clear escalation matrix.
Knowing who to go to when you hit a roadblock.
Exactly. And Dr. Chakraborty had that great Feminovation example before they implemented a written escalation process.
It was just endless discussion loops, right? Problems went round and round.
Total confusion. No one knew who should make the call or when to bump it up the chain.
Yep.
But once they wrote it down, who handles what, when to escalate, how to communicate it.
Suddenly things started moving.
Like night and day, he said. Projects moved faster, less confusion, and the team actually felt more confident because the path was clear.
It's that power of writing it down. Conversations can be great, but they fade, don't they? Misunderstandings creep in.
Absolutely. Documentation sticks. But, it's not just about documentation. You still need those open communication channels.
Right, the human element.
Yeah. Regular check-ins, feedback loops, team huddles. Those are vital for alignment, especially if teams get bigger or projects get more complex. It's a written clarity combined with ongoing conversation.
Okay, so clarity is foundational. Now, let's build on that with Lawson's Law. If you keep putting information in, you'll eventually get information out.
This one feels intuitive, but it's powerful when you really think about it. Basically, the more consistent you are with your input sharing ideas, data, communicating clearly and regularly, the better and more reliable your output will be.
Like compounding interest, but for information.
Kind of, yeah. Think about a team doing daily stand-ups versus one meeting, whenever.
The daily team probably surfaces issues way faster.
Exactly. That consistent input of progress, challenges, needs, it keeps everyone aligned and leads to smoother results, better output.
So the leadership insight here is really about doubling down on knowledge sharing and building those strong feedback loops. Absolutely.
That consistency in communication directly fuels the clarity we were just talking about. And it builds the team's collective intelligence over time.
And the applications are things we often talk about, right? Team huddles, good performance reviews.
Yeah, but also consistently capturing what the team learns, sharing successes and failures across the board so everyone benefits. It's about creating systems where information flows constantly, not just, occasionally.
Okay, this makes sense. Prepare for pitfalls, build clarity, ensure consistent information flow. But then comes a part that I think many leaders find really hard.
Oh, letting go.
Yeah, exactly. Which brings us to Falkland's Law. When you don't have to make a decision, don't make a decision.
This one can feel counterintuitive, especially for decisive, action-oriented leaders. But the wisdom here is, don't rush.
Don't jump in if you don't absolutely need to.
Right. Avoid that knee-jerk reaction. Avoid unnecessary micromanagement. Sometimes the best thing you can do is let a decision mature. Let more information surface.
Let your team handle it.
Or let your team handle it. That's often the most crucial part. Strategic patience.
And Dr. Chakraborty was quite open about this, wasn't he? Admitting he struggled with micromanagement himself.
Yeah, he shared that. Feeling like he had to be the one to fix everything, jump in constantly.
And realizing it was actually holding people back.
Exactly. It stifled their initiative, their growth. When you truly empower your team, give them real ownership, let them make decisions.
Even the small ones.
Especially the small ones. It builds their confidence, their skills, and honestly, often leads to better outcomes because they're closer to the actual work.
But that requires a huge amount of trust, doesn't it, to really let go like that?
It does, which is the perfect lead-in, actually. Because building that trust, building strong relationships, what some call relational capital, is fundamental to making all of this work.
So it all connects back to relationships.
It really does. And there's this fantastic framework for thinking about this, the RICH framework, which Liz Bohannon teaches.
RICH. Okay, let's break that down.
Right, so R is for RHYTHMS. The idea is that strong relationships don't just happen. They need consistency. Think about any strong relationship in your life. Church, the gym, book club, regular family dinners.
There's a pattern, a regularity to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Showing up consistently, sticking to that rhythm. That's where connection deepens.
Okay, rhythms. What's next?
I is for initiative. Leaders don't just wait for relationships to form or problems to be brought to them. They take action.
Reaching out, following up.
Yes, inviting people in, making the first move, even if it feels a little awkward sometimes. It's about being proactive in building connections.
Makes sense. R, I with C.
C is communication. We've touched on this already, but it's crucial for relationships too. Clear, honest, regular communication. It's the bedrock of trust, personally and professionally.
Listening as much as talking.
Absolutely. Active listening, transparency.
Okay. Rhythms, initiative, communication, H must be.
H is HELP. And this, Liz Bohannon points out, is often the hardest one, especially for high-capacity folks.
The ones who are used to being self-reliant, the problem solvers.
Exactly. Asking for help can feel like weakness. But the key insight here is that vulnerability is actually a strength in relationships. Asking for help allows others to step in, to connect on a deeper level.
It creates an opportunity for connection.
Precisely. And Liz Bohannon has this fantastic quote, "Asking for help is a relational deposit, not a withdrawal."
Wow. Okay, a relational deposit, not a withdrawal. That completely reframes it, doesn't it?
It really does. It shows trust. It shows interdependence.
And Dr. Chakraborty used this RICH framework. He talked about an example at Finovation.
Yes, a really compelling one. They consciously implemented it with a specific team. They set up regular check-ins, the rhythms. They actively encouraged team members to take initiative, not wait to be told.
Okay.
They focused on honest, frequent communication. And this was the kicker. The CEO himself started asking the team for help when he genuinely needed it.
Which he admitted was hard for him.
Very hard, but transformative.
So what happened? What were the results?
Pretty remarkable, actually. The team started taking much more ownership. They began reaching out proactively when they hit roadblocks instead of letting things fester or waiting for the boss to notice.
So better problem solving.
Yes, and overall performance improved significantly. But maybe more importantly, the whole team culture shifted. There was more trust, more psychological safety, a stronger sense of shared mission.
That vulnerability piece, the leader asking for help, seems like it was a catalyst.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It signaled that it was okay not to have all the answers, that relying on each other was a strength. It really unlocked a different level of engagement. What stands out to you the most about how that vulnerability and the consistent engagement really changed that team's dynamic?
It really underscores that leadership isn't just about strategy and process, it's deeply human. Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. We've covered quite a bit.
We have.
We started with Murphy's Law, that realism about anticipating challenges. Then Kydland's and Gilbert's laws, focusing on that critical need for clarity, write it down.
Half solved right there.
Exactly. Then Walson's law, consistent input leads to better output. Keep that information flowing.
Build that knowledge base.
And Falkland's law, the wisdom of strategic patience, knowing when not to decide, empowering your team,
letting go.
And finally, tying it all together with the RICH, framework, rhythms, initiative, communication, and that crucial act of asking for help to build strong relational capital.
Yeah, and the core message, I think, that runs through all of this is that leadership isn't about aiming for perfection. It's about being authentic, being present, and consistently working to build trust.
That's how you build something lasting, isn't it? More than just a team, maybe a legacy.
Well said. It's about building that foundation of trust and shared understanding.
So a final thought for everyone listening. Considering all these insights we've unpacked today, think about Falkland's Law, strategic patience, and the H and RICH asking for help. How might embracing vulnerability and intentionally stepping back sometimes actually create more space for your team's initiative? And how could that significantly boost your relational capital, both with your team and beyond? Something to mull over. Keep leading with clarity and courage.